Ethan Crawford never believed silence could be so loud. It was Saturday morning. Sunlight poured through the windows of the two-story house he shared with his wife, Amelia, and yet everything felt dim, muted, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He sat at the kitchen counter, slowly stirring a cup of coffee. He wasn't even planning to drink. He had been awake since 5 a.m., thinking, or more accurately, circling the same thoughts like a man wandering in a maze without exits. That morning, Amelia came downstairs later than usual. She looked tired, her hair slightly messy, her eyes swollen as if she hadn't slept either. But there was something else, something unfamiliar, a stiffness in her shoulders, a hesitation in the way she avoided his eyes. Ethan felt it instantly. He had always been sensitive to the smallest shift in her mood. They used to joke that he could read her mind better than he could read his emails. But now, after 8 years of marriage, the connection that once felt like a superpower felt instead like a warning alarm. "Morning," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Hey," Ethan tried to sound casual, but his throat felt tight. "You're up late." She shrugged. "Didn't sleep well." He nodded slowly. Amelia walked around the counter, grabbed a mug, poured tea. They stood in silence, the kind that isn't comfortable, the kind that demands to be acknowledged. Eventually, Ethan decided to break it. "Is something wrong?" he asked gently. She froze for half a second, a moment too fast for most people to catch, but not for him. Then she forced a small smile. "No, just tired, liar," Ethan thought before he could stop himself. The word hit him harder than expected. He wasn't used to thinking of her that way. Amelia had never been a liar. Until recently. Or maybe she had been hiding something for longer, and he had been too blind or too naive to notice. She sat at the table with her tea, rubbing her temple with the tips of her fingers. She looked genuinely stressed, but something in her eyes felt distant, like she was here physically, but not emotionally. Ethan took a slow breath. "We can't talk about it, you know. Whatever it is." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I know," but she didn't say anything else. He hated this. The space between them felt like a crack in the ground, small now but threatening to grow into a canyon deep enough to swallow them both. He watched her quietly, searching for any sign, any clue, anything that could tell him why she had been acting so strangely the last month. Late work nights, unexpected girls' dinners, phone face down every time she left it on the table, a new habit of walking into another room when answering calls. These could all be nothing, or they could be everything. Ethan wasn't jealous by nature. He trusted Amelia with his entire soul, or at least he used to. But now each unexplained moment stacked itself on top of the previous one, building a tower of doubt taller than he could manage. Finally, she stood up. "I need to get ready," she said. "I'm meeting Sarah for brunch." Ethan frowned. "Sarah? I thought she was visiting her sister this weekend." Amelia blinked. "Oh, yeah?" She got back early. Something twisted in Ethan's stomach. "A lie?" "A sloppy one, right?" he said quietly. She didn't notice his tone, or pretended not to. She headed upstairs. Ethan followed with his eyes but didn't move. His heart felt heavy, like a stone pressing against his ribs. He needed air, clarity, something. He stood, grabbed his keys, and went outside into the cold morning air. The sky was too bright, too cheerful compared to the storm inside his chest. As he stood on the driveway, his phone vibrated in his pocket, a message from his sister. "Laura, are you okay? You've been quiet lately." He stared at the screen for a moment. He could tell her. He could unload everything. But what would he even say? "Hey, Laura, I think Amelia might be lying to me. But I have no proof except the sinking feeling in my gut." That sounded pathetic, overdramatic, or maybe perfectly accurate. Instead, he typed back, "I'm fine. Just tired." The exact same lie Amelia had told him minutes earlier. He shoved the phone into his pocket and began walking down the street, not really knowing where he was going. The wind stung his face, and for a moment, he appreciated the discomfort. It felt grounding, real. After 10 minutes, he found himself at the small park near their neighborhood. Kids were playing, parents chatting, dogs running around. It was peaceful, normal. The kind of normal that felt like another universe compared to his racing thoughts. Ethan sat on a bench and leaned forward, elbows on knees. He tried to breathe deeply, but his breaths were shallow and shaky. He remembered the first time he'd seen Amelia cry, really cry, the night her father died. He had held her until sunrise. Back then, she trusted him with everything. Every fear, every insecurity, every dream. Now she wouldn't even tell him the truth about brunch. The thought made his chest ache. Something was happening. He could feel it, like a storm approaching, the air thickening, the sky darkening long before the first raindrop fell. And the worst part, Ethan didn't know if the storm would destroy them or reveal something he never wanted to see. After an hour, he walked home. Amelia's car was gone. The house felt even emptier than before, heavy with unanswered questions. He entered the bedroom to look for his headphones and noticed something on the dresser. Amelia's perfume. The one she always wore on date nights. Not brunch with friends. He lifted the bottle slowly, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. Why would she wear this today? He didn't want to jump to conclusions. He wanted to trust her. He wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding. But sometimes, the truth whispers long before it screams. And today, that whisper was deafening. I woke up the next morning with the same heaviness in my chest that had followed me to sleep. The memory of last night, her cold eyes, the way she flinched when my hand brushed hers, the quiet tension in the kitchen played on a loop in my mind. I told myself I wouldn't jump to conclusions. I told myself she was stressed, tired, overwhelmed. I told myself many things, but none of them helped. As I stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the shower running, she was getting ready earlier than usual. Lena never showered before breakfast. She always joked she needed food before anything else. But today, she was up before me, moving around the apartment with careful, quiet steps, as if she didn't want me to know she was awake at all. When she finally stepped into the bedroom, wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping wet, I forced a smile. "Morning," I said softly. She paused, just for a second, long enough for me to see her eyes shift away. Her jaw tightened. "Morning," she replied, her voice light to light. The kind someone uses when pretending everything is normal but doesn't want questions. I sat up, glancing at the clock. "You're leaving early." "Yeah, I have some things to finish." She moved toward the closet, pulling out clothes without looking at me. "Since when?" I pressed. "You didn't mention anything last night." "I didn't think it mattered," she said quickly. "Didn't matter." The words burned more than they should have. "I'd just like to know your schedule," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "That's all." She stopped halfway through, reaching for a blouse. Her shoulders stiffened, and then she turned her head slightly, not enough to face me, just enough to send the message. "Don't start," she whispered. "Don't start." Like I was the problem. Like asking about her day was some kind of interrogation. I exhaled slowly. "I'm not starting anything. I just want to understand what's going on with you." At that, she turned fast, sharp. Her expression was tight, almost defensive. "Nothing is going on with me. Why do you keep acting like something's wrong?" "Because something is wrong." But I didn't say it. Not yet. She dressed quickly, barely meeting my eyes, moving around the room with a nervous energy I couldn't ignore. I recognized that type of behavior. It was the kind someone has when they're hiding something, when they're afraid one wrong movement will expose everything. I tried again, gently, cautiously. "Lena, you've been distant. You barely talk to me." "Last night, I'm just tired," she snapped, cutting me off as she zipped her jeans. "Work is a lot right now. My friends are dealing with things. My head is everywhere. I don't need you treating me like I'm doing something wrong, and I don't need you treating me like I'm your enemy." I muttered. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through bone. Her expression faltered for just a second. Guilt? Annoyance? I couldn't tell. Then she grabbed her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and brushed past me, "I'll be home late," she said. Already halfway out the door. "You didn't even eat?" I reminded her. "I'm not hungry." Before I could say another word, she was gone. The door closed with a soft but final click, leaving the apartment too quiet, too cold, too empty. I sat alone at the table for a long while. The untouched breakfast, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the faint smell of her shampoo lingering in the air, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. She used to tell me everything. She used to laugh in the mornings. She used to kiss me goodbye. Now she avoided eye contact like it burned her. I grabbed my phone, scrolling aimlessly, pretending I wasn't waiting for a message from her even though I was. Every vibration made my heart jump, but it was never her. Not once. Hours crawled by, and by afternoon, I found myself pacing the living room, overthinking everything. Every moment we'd had lately, every strange shift in her behavior. Maybe I was losing my mind, overreacting, imagining things. But then my mind replayed yesterday, her pulling away when I touched her back, the way she snapped, the way she looked at me like a stranger. No, I wasn't imagining it. Something was happening, something she didn't want me to know. Around 5 p.m., my phone buzzed. For a moment, hope surged in my chest. Maybe it was her. Maybe she'd say she'd be home soon. Maybe she missed me. Maybe today was just a bad day. But it wasn't her. It was my friend, Ethan. "Ethan, hey man. Everything cool? You seem off lately." I hesitated before replying. "Me. Just things with Lena. She's different." His response came almost instantly. "Ethan, different how?" "Different in all the ways that matter. Different in the ways that break a person slowly." Before I could answer, I heard the front door unlock. She was home already. But no, the footsteps were too heavy, too careless. Lena was always light on her feet, always quiet. Ethan stepped inside, holding two coffees. "You didn't answer, so I came to check on you." I forced a weak smile. "You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did," he said, handing me the drink. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Maybe I hadn't. He sat on the couch and motioned for me to join in. "Talk to me." I took a deep breath. "She's hiding something," I said finally. "I don't know what, but it feels like she's slipping away from me." "What makes you think that?" I looked down at my hands. "Everything." That evening, Lena came home after 10 p.m. Her hair was a little messy. Her lipstick was slightly smudged. She rarely wore lipstick to work. She smelled like perfume that didn't belong to her. When she noticed Ethan sitting with me, she froze for a moment, just long enough for shock to flicker across her face before she masked it. "Oh," she said stiffly. "I didn't know you had company." I exchanged a quick glance with Ethan. He stood up immediately. "I was just leaving," he said, when the door closed behind him. The silence between us thickened. Then I noticed something. Her blouse was buttoned wrong. One button shifted slightly out of place. A detail most people wouldn't notice, but I did, because I knew her. Or at least, I thought I did. "Long day?" I asked quietly. "Yeah." She didn't look at me. "I'm exhausted." I nodded, watching her carefully, feeling the distance grow wider, the cracks deeper. Something was happening, and I was no longer sure I was prepared to hear the truth. The days that followed felt like walking through a house built from glass, every surface reflecting the same question back at me. When did all of this begin to fall apart? And the worst part, I still didn't have an answer. Sophie acted as if nothing had happened. She didn't mention the night she'd come home smelling faintly of someone else's perfume. She didn't bring up the strange, quiet tension constantly hanging between us. She didn't even acknowledge that we slept on opposite sides of the bed now, each facing away from the other like two strangers forced to share the same room. But silence is its own confession. One evening, I came home earlier than I ever did. The office had shut down halfway through the day due to electrical issues, and I drove home with this dull feeling that something was waiting for me, something inevitable. When I unlocked the door, the apartment was filled with soft music, the kind she listened to only when she wanted to clear her mind or when she wasn't alone. Her laugh filtered through the hallway. Man's voice followed. I froze, literally stopped mid-motion like someone had unplugged me. The keys slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a metallic clatter. The voices went silent. Then I heard her footsteps light, quick, and way too cautious. She peeked around the corner and her eyes widened. "Oh, you're home early," she said, forcing a smile that looked like it hurt her face to hold in place. "I didn't expect you." "I can tell," I answered, my voice lower than I intended. She stepped out fully, blocking the view into the living room for a second too long. And behind her, just barely, I saw a jacket thrown over the couch. A man's jacket. "Who's here?" I asked. Sophia inhaled sharply. "A friend. That's all." I didn't move. "A friend you didn't tell me about." Her shoulders stiffened. "I don't have to tell you about every person I talk to." Maybe she was right, but that wasn't what this was about, and she knew it. Before she could stop me, I walked past her into the living room. A man stood there adjusting his watch, his expression somewhere between polite and uncomfortable. Not guilty, not defensive, just aware that he wasn't supposed to be there. "This your friend?" I asked. He opened his mouth, but Sophia cut in sharply. "He came to help me with something for work." "It's nothing more than that." The man nodded once. "Yes, just work." But the air between them told a different story. A story written in glances, unfinished sentences, and the fact that she was standing slightly closer to him than she should have been. I didn't say anything else. Instead, I just stared at her until she looked away. He left soon after, mumbling a polite goodbye while Sophia avoided meeting my eyes. When the door closed behind him, the silence grew thick enough to choke on. "What was that?" I asked quietly. She rubbed her temples. "I told you, work." "That didn't look like work." Her frustration burst out instantly. "What do you want from me?" For me to sit at home every minute and never talk to anyone. You've been distant. You've been cold. You barely even look at me anymore." I cut her off with a bitter laugh. "Maybe because I feel like I don't even know who I'm looking at." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is lying to me." She turned away. "I didn't lie. You hid it." She didn't deny it this time. We stood there in the dimly lit room, facing opposite walls, like we were both waiting for the other to break the invisible line between us. But neither of us did. Later that night she fell asleep first, breathing softly beside me. But I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breath, trying to figure out if they still sounded like home. And then, just as I was drifting to sleep, I heard her whisper something so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. A name. Not mine. My eyes opened instantly. And for the first time, I felt something inside me collapse completely. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even betrayal. It was realization. Realization that the person lying next to me wasn't slipping away. She was already gone. And I had no idea how to get her back, or if I still wanted to. The days after my confrontation with Lily were some of the strangest in my life. Everything seemed both too loud and too quiet at the same time. The house felt hollow without her, even though she hadn't lived there for weeks. Her coat wasn't in the hallway. Her perfume wasn't on the pillows anymore. And yet, every corner still felt like it remembered her better than I did now. It was as if the walls themselves were whispering questions I didn't want answers to. I spent most of those days trying to exist in a routine almost mechanically. Work, gym, home, sleep. But none of it felt like life. It felt like punishment with a schedule. And every night, when I lay down to sleep, the same image appeared behind my eyelids. Lily turning away from me that night, refusing to look me in the eyes. Her silence heavier than shouting could ever be. One evening, Mark called me. He hadn't spoken to me since the breakup, and we'd been best friends since high school. "Bro, you alive?" he asked the moment I picked up. "Depends on the definition," I muttered. Mark sighed. "Okay, I'm coming over." "I don't want." He hung up before I could finish. 20 minutes later, he was inside, carrying 2 bags of takeout and a bottle of whiskey. He set everything on the coffee table, then looked at me like I was a wounded animal he wasn't sure how to approach. "You haven't eaten properly in weeks," he said. "And unless my eyes deceive me, you haven't slept either." I didn't answer. I just stared at the bottle on the table. He sat down beside me. "You did everything for her. You loved her more than you should have. That's not your fault. It wasn't enough," I whispered. Mark shook his head. "You don't owe loyalty to someone who threw it away." I wanted to agree. I wanted to believe him. But something stubborn inside me kept pulling me back to the same thought. What if I had done something different? What if I had been better? Maybe she wouldn't have left. Maybe she wouldn't have cheated. Maybe we would still be celebrating anniversaries instead of calculating emotional damage. Mark nudged my shoulder. "You need a distraction. You need air. Change of environment. Something." "I don't want anything," I said. He leaned back. "Well, tough luck, because I've already planned something." I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "You're coming with me to the coastal villa this weekend." "No," I replied instantly. "Yes," he answered just as quickly. "I booked everything. You need this. It's going to be full of couples, isn't it?" "Actually, no," he smirked. "It's a private spot. Quiet. No romance. No drama. Just sea and silence. You can stare at waves for 3 days and pretend the world doesn't exist." I wanted to argue, but honestly, I was too tired. And the idea of being somewhere Lily had never been, somewhere without memories, felt almost like breathing again. "Fine," I said at last. Mark grinned like he had accomplished something heroic. We arrived Friday afternoon. The villa stood right on the water, with massive windows and a wooden deck that seemed to float above the sea. The waves were gentle, a soft rhythm I felt more than heard. The sunset painted the horizon in a color I forgot existed. "This," I whispered, "this is actually good." "I know," Mark said, giving me a knowing look. "I come through sometimes." We unpacked, then spent an hour sitting outside, drinking and talking about everything except Lily. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. A moment where the pain loosened its grip just enough for me to breathe. But peace never lasts long for me. Around 9 p.m., I took a walk down the shoreline alone. The night air was warm, almost comforting. The waves washed over my feet, cold enough to wake something inside me. And for a few minutes, I felt almost normal. Then I saw someone, a woman, standing at the edge of the water a few meters away. She was barefoot, wearing a loose white shirt that danced in the wind. Her hair was dark, falling miscellany on her shoulders. She looked lost in her thoughts, the way I had been for weeks. I wasn't sure if I should walk away or say something. But she turned first, as if sensing me. Our eyes met for a moment. Neither of us spoke. Finally she gave a small, tired smile, the kind someone gives after life has beaten them down but they're still trying to stand. "Sorry," she said softly. "Didn't mean to disturb your walk." "You're not," I replied. "I think we're both just trying to escape something." She looked back at the sea. "Yeah, something like that." I stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "Rough day." She laughed quietly, though it didn't sound happy. "Rough year, actually." "Yeah," I nodded. "I get that." She glanced at me again. "Break up." "Something like that," I answered. "You," she inhaled slowly. "Divorce." I didn't expect that. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said. "It was necessary. Painful, but necessary." We fell into silence again, but it wasn't awkward. It was understanding. Two strangers standing in the dark, connected only by shared damage. "I'm Mia," she said after a moment. "Alex." I replied. "Nice to meet you, Alex," she said quietly. "Even if the timing is a mess." I let out a breath. Honestly, messy timing might be the only thing I have left these days. She smiled, a real one this time. The waves washed over our feet again. For the first time since losing Lily, I didn't feel alone. Not healed, not better, but maybe finally moving, just a little. I didn't sleep the night before. My mind kept replaying everything, her messages, her silence, the lies she fed me so calmly that I almost believed them again. I didn't know what would happen today, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This was the end of the story that had eaten months of my life. Whether it ended with forgiveness or with a final break, I would no longer be the man who blindly trusted every word she whispered. Morning light spilled through the half-closed blinds, painting long lines across the floor. The apartment felt colder than usual, as if it anticipated what was coming. I stared at the spot where she usually left her bag, at the couch where we argued, at the kitchen table where we used to laugh before everything shattered. Every corner of the room had become a memory that hurt. Around noon, she texted, "We need to talk. I'm coming over." For the first time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I wasn't desperate. I was simply empty, quiet in a way that felt new, almost peaceful. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. When the door opened, she stepped inside slowly, like someone entering a church instead of the place where she betrayed everything we had. She looked tired, her eyes swollen, her voice shaky. But I didn't move toward her. I didn't offer comfort. "Those days were over. Can we sit?" she asked, barely audible. I nodded, but the distance between us on the couch felt like a wall miles thick. She stared at her hands for a long time. "I know what you saw, and I know there's nothing I can say to undo it. But I want to explain." "I'm listening," I said. My voice surprised even me, steady, calm, almost detached. She inhaled sharply. "I didn't plan any of it. It started with stupid messages. Attention I shouldn't have wanted, but I did. You were busy, distant, stressed, and I let myself believe that I was lonely. But that's not an excuse. I know that." She paused, searching my face for a reaction. She didn't find one. Then it went too far. And I hated myself for it. Every day. I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid of losing you. "You lost me the moment you lied," I said quietly. She covered her mouth as if the words physically hit her. "I know, and I am so sorry." Silence filled the room. Heavy, suffocating. I thought about all those nights when something felt wrong, but she said, "Stop overthinking." I remembered every time she turned away from me to hide her guilt. I remembered how I tried to fix us while she was tearing us apart in secret. I remembered the version of myself who trusted too deeply, loved too fiercely, and ignored every warning sign because I believed she would never do what she did. I wasn't that man anymore. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Did you ever love me, truly?" She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, but I wasn't strong enough to protect what we had." "Love is strength," I said. "Lies are weakness." The truth hung in the air like smoke. She reached toward me slowly, as if afraid I might break. "Can we fix this? I'll do anything. Therapy, honesty, whatever you want. Just don't say this is the end." But it was. I realized at the moment she walked in. I could forgive the pain, the humiliation, even the betrayal, but I could never forget it. And love cannot grow on a foundation cracked beyond repair. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I just don't feel the same. Something changed in me. Something broke, and I don't think it can come back." She sobbed, collapsing into her hands. She knew. She understood. There was nothing left to fight for. I stood up. "Take anything you need," I said. "But after today, we go our separate ways." She nodded through tears, unable to look at me. I walked to the window and opened it slightly. Fresh air rushed in, cool and sharp. It felt like the first real breath I had taken in months. When she left, she didn't close the door behind her. I heard her footsteps fade down the hallway, each one softer than the last. For a long time, I just stood there, not crying, not shaking, just standing, letting the silence settle. And then, for the first time since everything fell apart, I smiled, small, tired, but real, because I understood something important. This was not the end of my story. This was the end of ours. And sometimes the final truth is not meant to break you, but to finally set you free.